Sparkly salutations! If you're a casual makeup user or somewhat new to it, or if you just want to hear about some things that can improve your general makeup experience, then the things that I'm talking about in this video might be worth looking into. These will be mostly makeup related things, but there'll also be some nail stuff at the end. First up, a good lash comb is a really nice thing to have. Some mascaras are decent at separating your eyelashes, but others can make them sort of blob together. Instead of separating them manually with something like a safety pin or a toothpick, I very much recommend getting a lash comb. I think metal ones do a better job than plastic ones, but that might be a personal preference thing. I use this lash separator from Real Techniques, and I gently run it through my eyelashes while my mascara is still wet. If the mascara has dried, then the comb might make little flakes fall off and go onto your cheeks, so try to avoid that. Something else that can make a really big difference is eyeshadow primer. Using a little bit on your eyelids will help your shadow be vibrant and avoid creasing and look good all day. I don't always bother using a face primer, but I will always use an eye primer before I do my shadow. The one I use is from Milani, and I don't think I've ever heard anyone say that they didn't like it, so it's a pretty safe bet. The Urban Decay Primer Potion is another classic that most people like, but it also costs more. So, I would say go with Milani, but if you want to be fancy, you can get Urban Decay instead. I've also used the old e.l.f. one that comes in a tube, and it worked okay for me, but I also don't have oily eyelids, so I think I have more wiggle room as far as which primers will work for me. Another eyeshadow related item is some sort of quick brush cleaning thing. Usually when people talk about these, they'll call them a color switch, but I think that's a Kleenex Jello sort of thing where it was originally the name of some brand's version of this and then it became generic. So it's some sort of plasticky, spongy thing that you can gently rub your eyeshadow brushes on to get the color off of them, and then you can use that same brush in a new shadow without having to worry about getting your colors mixed together. Mine is a chunk of stipple sponge that was once used to simulate beards from an old stage makeup class, sitting in the container that once held some loose setting powder. So you can buy an official version that will look much less weird than this, or you can also just use a hair donut if you have one of those laying around, because that's basically what these are. Bonus fun fact about this tip, if you have your little stipple sponge thing in a container, then all the eyeshadow that comes off your brushes will get saved in that container, and then you can use isopropyl alcohol and an old pan that used to have eyeshadow in it and press your own weird, Franken shadow. So, neat. I have one blending brush that's my general go-to for whatever I need to blend on my eyes, and another one that I'll basically only use around the edges where my eyeshadow stops and fades out into just my skin color, and I'll also sometimes use a shadow that matches my skin to sort of diffuse those edges, especially if I've gone down too low or if I just need to kind of tone down the shadow a bit. It's especially helpful for me to have that kind of a brush because I do tend to use a lot of very bright and vibrant and crazy colors, but I think even someone who just uses neutral safe colors could probably benefit from a brush whose sole purpose is to blend things. This one isn't a product, just a tip about something you can use for eyeshadow application. Your fingers. Some eyeshadows simply perform better if you put them on with your finger instead of a brush. I've found that I always prefer my fingers for cream eyeshadows, even if sometimes a flat, dense brush can get them to apply okay. Some standard powder shadows also go on better with my fingers, usually shimmer or metallic formulas. I try to avoid using my finger for matte shadows unless I can't get a brush to do a good job because I just don't like touching them, they feel too dry. Always make sure your fingers are clean before touching your makeup or your face. If eyeliner is a struggle or you got some waterproof mascara on your skin, then I have a wonderful solution for you. Makeup remover in a felt tip pen. This is super helpful for cleaning up whatever happy little accidents happen to your face. I think some brand at Sephora has one, and Maybelline makes one that comes with extra tips on the bottom, but this e.l.f. one is super cheap and it works just fine. Another item that can help you clean up sun messes is a fan brush. If you do your eyes after your foundation and then some eyeshadow drops onto your cheek, you may be able to sort of dust it away with your fan brush. Depending on the shadow that fell and how much of it got on your face, you may still need to do a bit of touching up. These are also great for applying highlighter if you want your cheekbones to be subtly accentuated but not shine like headlights when you turn your face. Sometimes I'll even use a fan brush to apply my blush if I'm using one that's super pigmented. I like my blush to be on the softer side, and if I use a regular brush to apply a really pigmented blush, then I can very easily end up looking like I've just ran a couple of miles, which is not what I want. If there's a foundation formula that you really like but they don't have your perfect shade in their range, you can use a mixer to try to create your own. You can change the tone or the depth depending on what the problem is. You can also use a foundation mixer to change the color of your foundation if you've gotten more or less tan, instead of having to buy a second shade, especially if you buy a kind of expensive foundation. It's much more convenient to have a foundation that just checks all the boxes on its own, but given that foundation matching is even harder than normal right now, a mixer is a good backup plan. Personally, I use the LA Girl Light Mixer because this e.l.f. foundation is pretty much perfect for me, except that it's too dark. So I can mix in a bit of white and then it will actually match my face. This mixer doesn't seem to change the coverage or overall performance of my foundation, so I really like it. I've got one more e.l.f. product to recommend to you, and that's their Kiss It Goodbye lipstick remover. The great thing about budge-proof liquid lipsticks is that they stay all day, they can survive being under a mask, and they don't come off. The problem is, they don't come off. So it's hard to find something that can gently but effectively get rid of your liquid lipstick, and this is the answer. For overall makeup removal, the thing that's been a real game changer for me is makeup eraser cloths. I don't have any of the official makeup eraser brand ones, but there are a lot of inexpensive microfiber cloths out there that are essentially the same thing. This little one is from Ulta, and this one doesn't have a brand on its tag, but they're just really soft cloths, and all you have to do is get them wet with some water and then gently wipe at your face until all your makeup is gone. Except waterproof mascara, that will obviously still not come off because you need a remover to get rid of waterproof mascara. When they need to be cleaned, you can just throw them in your laundry and they won't get any makeup on your clothes and they'll come out looking pretty much like new. Sometimes there'll be a little bit of staining, but it's not anything to be concerned about. If you're currently using disposable wipes to take off your makeup, then I highly recommend looking into getting microfiber cloths instead. That was the last of the makeup tools, but I have a few more suggestions for anyone who does their own nails instead of going to a salon. I would imagine that a lot of people have started doing more at-home nail care in the past several months, so hopefully this will be helpful for you. I'd be happy to do occasional nail-specific videos if that's something that people are interested in. Instead of using a harsh emery board, aka sandpaper stick, to file your nails, try out a crystal or glass file. Emery boards and those weird little stripes of file that some nail clippers have can make it hard to get your nails to actually be smooth and non-snaggy. I bought a glass file last year and it's made such a difference. It's way faster to smooth out my nails now. Filing them still gives me spine shivers because of how awful it feels, but there's fewer spine shivers happening now, but it's a faster, easier process. If you've ever used a glitter nail polish, you know how horrible they can be to remove. There are various tricks for getting it off, like sticking an acetone-soaked cotton ball on your nail and then wrapping your fingertip with tinfoil or whatever, but I think it's a lot easier to just use a peel-off base coat underneath the glitter. A peely base coat lets you basically just pop the shell of nail polish off once you're done with that color. Since I have really dry skin, I actually use a peely base coat on my left hand every time I do my nails so that I don't have to use as much nail polish remover on my poor fingers. It's harder to get my nails to last on my right hand if I use a peely base there, so I don't usually do that. I've recently learned that peel-off base coat is also useful for a certain kind of nail stamping. If that's something that you're interested in, I'll have my recent video about stamping linked in the top right corner thingy, and also in the description, if I remember. When I was young, I used to paint my nails right before going to sleep and just kind of stick my arms off the side of the bed, hoping that the polish would dry before I rolled over and moved my arms into a position that might lead to indents and fabric impressions in my not entirely dried nail polish. It kind of worked, but your hands don't need to be temporarily incapacitated after you've painted your nails. One of the best innovations in the realm of nail polish is the quick dry top coat. Some are better than others, but if you use a really good quick dry top coat, your hands can be basically back to fully functional in just a few minutes. I've used the Seche Vite top coat and the Holo Taco Super Glossy Taco, and both of those are good enough that I feel safe playing the piano or doing the dishes with my rubber gloves on within maybe a half hour of finishing my nails. They're also good for giving you a smooth finish if nail art or glitter has made them a bit bumpy. For polish cleanup or nail stamping, it's really nice to have a bottle of pure acetone. A tiny bit of acetone will completely clean off any brushes that you've used for nail art. My final tool recommendation is closely tied to the previous one. You can use super cheap makeup brushes to clean up your nails with acetone. It sort of works with regular nail polish remover, but not as well because acetone is more effective. I have a couple of really cheap e.l.f. lip brushes that I use for nail purposes, and it's super quick to dip one into acetone and clean up polish that got on my skin. The concealer brush with the white handle would also be really good for nail purposes, but I only have the one and I want to use it on my face, so I don't put this in acetone. Nothing I've said here is super innovative or unique, but these are all things that I wish I had known about when I was starting to familiarize myself with makeup. I'm sharing the things that I've learned so that you don't have to walk around with your foundation being too dark or a dusting of lime green eyeshadow on your cheekbone, like I have unfortunately done in the past. Learn from my mistakes and go forth fabulously. But by go forth, I mean that metaphorically. Please don't actually travel for the holidays because that's only making the pandemic worse. Please just stay home. It'll be okay. My neighbor is just outside this window moving trash cans around or something, and I'm just kind of hiding behind my mirror and hoping he doesn't look in here. Please don't notice me.